Okay. Any questions, please? Harder the better. Yes.
You talk about trying to save California economically.
Yeah.
What about all these social issues? Do they have an economic impact, and how should they be handled?
Are you asking about?
Well, something like, dealing with illegal immigration, gay marriage, and other kinds of social issues.
Right, right. In order to undertake this role as the World Negotiation Center in the future, we would have to undergo some changes in our own government, namely what's called subnational sovereignty. So the military and the dollar stay intact, but all of the other policy decisions return to the state, which would include immigration, banking, education, everything other than the dollar and the military. Those would be returned to California because California would need that level of flexibility to be able to develop itself to provide these services. Furthermore, this is exactly how Switzerland did it. Switzerland was a state of France. Switzerland became subnationally sovereign. Their dollar, and they used the Swiss franc, and they were connected to France. They kept all of their other policy decisions. That was enough for them to be seen as neutral and independent by the rest of Europe. So we would need that step, and we would be able to have more freedom to handle these issues here in California like we've never had before. And I think that that would mean that we'd have more resolution. I documented thoroughly in the book, and basically, just to sum it up, you look at an average US state, you're looking at 5% of the population is not white. You look at California, you're looking at 65% of the population is not white. That is such a gigantic quantitative difference that you get a qualitative difference. And I have it documented here in the book. There are presidents, officers, senators, judges saying, California's a bunch of weirdos. They don't understand us, they don't know us. No, Truman, Theodore Roosevelt said, California's west of the West. He meant they're wackos. That's documented. George Bush said something, Dick Cheney said something, there was something a few years back. Did you know, everybody know who Glenn Beck is?
Yes.
Okay. So Glenn Beck was on Fox News. There were forest fires in Southern California. Hundreds of homes gone, people dead, other people, burnt limbs, horrible disfigurement. Glenn Beck goes on TV and says, a bunch of people who hate America lost their homes today, ha ha ha. They aired that show for the rest of the year. He was never punished. Nobody ever said anything. And it was still very popular. So what does it say about a country who thinks it's funny when Californians literally die and lose their homes because they quote unquote hate America? Didn't go into any of the details, etc. That's just one story. Everybody know who Jerry Falwell is?
Yes.
Okay. Jerry Falwell was a campaign contributor for George W. Bush. He did some campaign speeches and gave some money. Part of his reward was that Jerry Falwell got to have a webpage on the official White House website paid by your tax dollars when George W. Bush was president. On his website, linked to the White House official page, in 2005, 2006, he takes questions from callers. Now remember, this is right after 9/11. One of the callers asks, hey Jerry, if a terrorist sneaks a nuclear bomb into San Francisco and blows it up and kills everybody there, is that really bad because they're evil? Official White House website, your tax dollars. Why is that allowed? Why didn't anybody say anything about that? I got a ton more stories in here. We're different. Maybe us being able to have more control over our own decisions since we are such a different type of culture is a good thing. Yes, please.
You mentioned a
subnational sovereignty.
Can you explain how that would work or how it would be implemented?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I base this on Scotland. The term comes from Scotland. Scotland in the last 5 years, and I mean these last 5 years, have basically gone from a colony of England, which they've been for 400 years, and in the last 5 they've moved to become almost completely independent, with the British pound and the British military still intact. So Scottish soldiers still join the British military, they go wherever that goes, none of that changes, and they still use the British pound. But Now they have control over immigration and banking. You remember how we used to sell bad home loans and then you'd repackage them and bundle it or something and sell it off to another person and never tell them what you were buying? Can't do it in Scotland. You go to prison. They don't have control over the dollar, but they do have control over the stupid stuff that got us into this recession. They're just one country that's done it, and they're the most recent one. Iceland's also done this, Greenland has also done this, and I have this documented in the book. There are 25 other nations around the world today who have this exact same form of government. And if we go back and look at the previous century, there's another 25 governments who've had this. By the way, all these governments, while they're rare, are found literally in all cultures around the world, meaning they're universally applicable, they're all stable, they're all democracies, and they all have growing economies. It's rare, but it exists. Again, it's not something we talk about. But Scotland's doing it, and so are other countries. I'm going to switch it around and come back. Is that okay? I think he was first.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I have a quick comment about your previous comments, and that is I think you give way too much credibility to both Glenn Beck and Jerry Falwell. Yeah, they're extreme. But my question is about, you mentioned about capitalism in China, and when you were projecting these different countries, you indicated that the possibility of China abandoning communism. Is there any basis for that, or did I misunderstand that?
I'm saying that China has already abandoned communism.
Oh.
And has abandoned it for the last 10 years, and just like North Korea, it's just a namesake. They literally aren't communist anymore. They're more of a dictatorship.
Okay.
They don't follow the hard Stalinist line thinking. It's about a group of people who've always been in charge, maintaining control, and the entire rest of the economy turning capitalist. By the way, North Korea has the exact same thing. They don't talk about it, but the North Korean economy runs on a black market. They're essentially capitalists themselves. So is Cuba. Please.
Okay, you mentioned that California could be the new Switzerland.
Yes.
Okay. And then you also mentioned that Brazil, China, Japan, and all these countries are having their own international organizations to take care of their foreign affairs.
Yes.
Then how can we have an international, or the new Switzerland here in California, when all these other countries are having their own organizations? Did I misunderstand?
Good question. No, good question. No, you didn't misunderstand at all. Good question. They are making their own organizations because they feel the current ones that are supposed to be the world center ones aren't fair. So China making the Shanghai Cooperation Council is a direct reaction to China saying the UN is not fair, it never has been, it was never made by the Chinese, you don't care about our opinion, you're just giving us lip service. Same thing with the IMF. Russia, India, Brazil, and ASEAN are doing this thing. And I think that's kind of the point, is that you have all these world powers, and all of them are basically voting with their feet and saying, we just don't believe the UN's fair. America doesn't want to hear that because America made the UN.
Yes, I have a question. With all these new superpowers, do you think that the dollar will not be the gauge or the benchmark for all the economies?
Let's handle that afterwards. I don't want to address questions that are outside of the purview of the book. You're asking about if America will be the future reserve currency in the future. I haven't really researched that, and I don't want to address it. But I'll give you my private opinion afterwards.
How would you get these countries such as China, India, Brazil to California when they're not even inviting us to join their new coalitions?
Because, and that's an excellent question. A couple of things. One is that it's not that hard to make an international organization. I know that seems thing, but all these countries have thrown up their new UNs in like literally 5 years. Like India just decided they want to have one, boom, they have one in 2 years. So you can make them, but are they quality? And what we would offer is, okay, You guys are throwing together your own organizations, but really, China, your Shanghai Cooperation Council is not going to have anybody bigger than just China and a few other people. We understand that you don't see the UN as and the IMF as fair. Work with us, and we'll guarantee to make a fair UN and IMF from scratch.
They already don't trust the United States.
Right, but we would be California. And
So
the-
we'd be separating ourselves from the rest
A
of the
new
country.
country.
Not any more than through the principles of subnational sovereignty, through the dollar and the retention of all military, by the way, that includes Homeland Security. However, marketing, sales, the rest of the world sees California as different and unique from America, documented thoroughly in the book. And that includes China, India, Russia, Brazil, Southeast Asia, and Europe. Just 2 quick points. One, the Prime Minister of England came over to California specifically to talk about how California was pursuing climate change. Didn't visit the rest of America, held a conference, and there was multiple EU leaders, and they met just with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and just came here, and then flew right back to Europe. Russia specifically came to Silicon Valley and talked about how great the economic climate was in California. And then they had their foreign ambassador and their prime minister come out here, just tour California, and then immediately left and went right back to Russia. So those are just certain examples where I'm showing that we already have an image. They already know who we are, and we are already perceived as different. We just need to market ourselves.